I'm Eric Newton, and this is The Together Show. We all know relationships take work, but what is that work, and how do we do it? As a former divorce lawyer, I've watched thousands of couples break up firsthand. Having seen the worst in relationships, I decided to try to help couples stay together. So on this show, we talk to real couples and find out what love really looks like.
A lot of people, when they get married, they already decided, well, for my first anniversary, we're going to do this. Now, it's like planned out. Most of the time, it doesn't work that way. You just have to play it for the day, you know. I don't think we ever get up in the morning thinking, gee, we've made it another year. All of a sudden, it's like 40 years.
Welcome to the show, everyone. Thanks for listening. I'm happy to say that we're still growing fast, but as always, we can definitely use your support. If you like what we're up to, please go to iTunes and subscribe to the show. It's free to do, and it makes a huge difference for us. So thank you. Now, on to our couple. Annie and Bobby have been together since 1965. Their marriage is a success by any standard, but it's amazing that they found one another to begin with, because as they say, they couldn't have come from two more different worlds. Annie was raised in Los Angeles amongst the Hollywood elite, and in fact, she still has the Oscar that her dad won. It's sitting on their mantle at home. Bobby was poor, rural, and black. But they did find one another, and they fell in love. And as they said after the show, somehow they found the guts to be an interracial couple in the 1960s. Now, more than 50 years later, they're still together, and as you'll hear on the show, they're still very much in love, though they wouldn't make too big a thing of that. Today's episode is simply about reflecting on 50 years together. So with that, let's go to Annie and Bobby Jones. So how did you two meet?
In Laguna Beach, really, on the boardwalk.
Bobby was cooking.
Yeah, I was working in probably one of the most popular restaurants on the boardwalk, so that's where everybody
hung out.
Ended up there at some time, yeah.
And he came out for his breaks when I was out on the boardwalk, and we just started hitting it off, and wasn't long before, boom.
So you were just hanging out?
I was back from school, and I just was living in the back house of my parents' beach house. So I was kind of a pseudo hippie at the time.
What year was this?
65 or 6 probably, huh?
Yeah.
And then we got married in 70.
And
1970 in Boulder. We moved to Boulder because of my parents, because, they weren't real thrilled about our being together at the beginning, although
why?
My mom was great because he was black and I was white. My dad was a pretty prejudiced guy. You should have seen the day when Bobby and I flew back for me to have them meet him. I had 9 fever blisters on my mouth that were oozing green because I was so stressed. When I got on the plane, at that time they were stewardesses, said, "Good morning" to everyone, and she goes, "Good," to me, and turned her head, and I thought, I'm in trouble. We stayed with a friend who lived in San Juan Capistrano. We drove up to Dad and Mom's, and Bobby's sitting in there watching TV, and I'm sitting in the den, and Dad goes in the back door, which he never did, had a couple of belts of scotch and came in, and he looks around, he says, "Well, where is he?" I said, "He's right there, Dad. This is Bobby." He said, "Oh."
I think he was expecting to see some guy with the big afro and the bell-bottom pants.
It's or else, like looking like a pimp or something.
Probably as plain as he was going to see it.
So it was quite a tense night, but, after a while they both, my mom in particular embraced Bobby. She adored him. But tell her what Dad said on the phone that time. Tell Eric what Dad said on the phone when he called and got you. Remember?
Oh, he said, "This is Dad." Who?
Who? Because he didn't really have a dad when he grew up. So what?
You know, it never seemed like an issue.
Well, it wasn't for us. We never made it an issue, but I mean, think about it. This was the time when MLK was assassinated. You know, we went through all of that. We really never got into too much trouble with it. I mean, there were some comments made, but you know, the one I remembered most vividly is when we were eating at Benton's, where Bobby worked, and we were walking out, and these two little old ladies were sitting in a booth, and one says, "And she looks like such a nice girl." And I just turned around and said, "Well, and you look like such a nice little old lady." And we just walked out, and that was that. Thank God it wasn't somebody else.
That's so good. When you met and started falling in love, did you two think, "Oh boy"?
No.
I don't think either one of us thought anything about that because it wasn't like I didn't ever felt like we were an interracial couple. It just every so often you hear something weird and you go, "Oh."
Well, okay, well, I guess we are. But we both had lots of friends, and
I mean, we knew a lot of the same people.
Yeah.
Too in Laguna. Yeah.
And the other thing was Laguna was a very big gay community, and I think that because they were living outside the pale a little bit, they didn't ever judge us either. I mean, we were all great friends, so
Yeah.
I think it made a big difference. And then when we moved to Colorado, I already had friends from college there because I went to CU. So they became Bobby's friends too, and that's where we had Emily. And
I think too, we didn't look like the typical mixed couple, because it's
No.
usually that the guy is either really dark, it's a black female, so you have that kind of
Yeah.
black and white contrast. We pretty much look alike sometimes. You know?
It's
Yeah.
true.
It's like
And I would get so tan I'd be darker than him.
we did go to a place. I think we were going to Yosemite when we stopped at that place. With
Oh
flags
Lord, we
and
went
shit.
home.
That wasn't
we
that
stopped
long
in
ago,
Bishop,
but, I mean,
California. We stayed in this little motel.
You couldn't even hear the silverware.
And we went into the
People-
dining room for breakfast, and people just stopped eating and stared at us. And
To
I
you
looked
two
at
now?
Bobby.
In-
Yeah, to the
recently?
two of us. Yes, it was how many years ago? Maybe 5.
5 years ago.
And you know, we were like,
By then,
"What?"
we'd been together
I
for
mean,
so long, I figured, what the hell
It
is
was
all
Yeah.
just
these-
total redneck community. I mean, totally. And they were all just appalled that we'd be in there. We ate really fast and got the
It's
hell
interesting
out of town.
because in most restaurants, you hear silverware clattering and glasses. It's like,
Nothing.
You didn't hear shit.
It's
You
just as
forget.
silent as.
Whoa, this is going to be a quick breakfast.
Wow, it's just amazing to me that actually.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was. I mean, I couldn't believe it. But I know that it's a big hunting community, and that really the people there are very insular, and it was a very white community, you know. And they're really what they lived to do was hunt and fish, and they didn't have any truck with any outsiders, I
Yeah.
think, more than anything. But it was pretty weird because we didn't expect it
Yeah.
at all.
It's amazing to me that it was not as big a deal as it could have been in the 60s.
I agree.
But Harsh, that might have been something to do with Boulder.
Well, Boulder was a good community for us, too. Although, when we left Boulder, we left because there were no black people in Boulder except for the students at the university. And Em had one black friend from preschool, and she was adopted. So we kind of thought, well, where's her dating pool, or where's her, where's her sense of herself? But there's some good stories about that, because one day when Bobby always picked Emily up from school, because he was a sous chef and he got off at 2, so he'd walk over and pick her up because I was working. And there was a little kid in her school that had just come, and he was from the South, and he was really a black kid, and he really had a really strong accent. And when he saw Bobby come to pick up Emily, he said, "Emily, you black?" And she looked at her arm and she said, "No, I'm not black." And she just walked away, and we thought, "Oh dear."
Well, so then you moved from Boulder back here.
Back to we'd never been in San Diego, never lived here.
Yeah.
We wanted we kind of wanted to go back to Laguna, but I'm really, in retrospect, glad we didn't because it got very Gucci after that. It wasn't the same town at all.
Yeah.
And this was a good compromise for us. And we wanted to be close to my family, but not too close.
Yeah.
So it worked out well. And we've been here 30 years.
And I'm trying to think back on your relationship as a couple during all that time. Now, I've never seen you fight. You must.
Well,
I've seen you snap at each other.
yeah, that's the most we do.
And so you don't have blow up fights?
Oh, we might have had a couple in the beginning, but not major.
Yeah.
We just
That's the advantage of that, is having another room in the house or a garage or somewhere where you can disappear to if you have to. You know.
I think the other secret to that is that we both live our own lives separately and we have our together. So, I have lots of outside interests that I like to participate in, and Bobby he loves to read, he loves to, take his photographs, et cetera, et cetera. So he likes quiet time, and he rode his bike forever and loved that. I'm proud that I gave him the things he loves the most.
We've never been one of those couples that,
Have to
even
hold hands
now,
and
when I
walk down
see
the
somebody
street.
walking in the street and the guy's got his arm around her neck and she's wrapped her. You can't even walk that way. God.
That's him.
Or you go to the other room and the other one is saying, "Where are you going? How long you going to be in there?" Well, I don't have to answer that.
Yeah, if you want traditional romance, that's not the guy. But if you want somebody who's steady, loves you all the time, does so much for you, I feel like I won the lottery when I married Bobby.
Yeah.
Because I'm not easy. I have a lot of emotions. I'm either really up or sometimes I'm down, or I'm not the steady pond.
Is that how you see it too, Bobby?
Yeah.
And he's a man of few words.
Makes for great interviewing.
Yeah, doesn't it? Could you elaborate a little, honey? No. So
It's in the facial expressions.
it is.
Which are just great.
Priceless.
I wish we could capture those on the
I
show
know.
somehow. But anyway,
They are
I want to make a
pretty
spectacle of
priceless.
you, Bobby. But
He's the cutest thing too. He has a baby picture from when he was little. He has not changed one whit.
really.
Not one whit.
So what kinds of you guys must have gone through some? It's been what, 40-something years? How long?
We've been
is it?
married
We've
45
been together
years.
50, what,
We've been
51
close
years?
to 50 years, yeah. Wow. We've been 50 years together.
So you've been through some phases.
Oh, yeah.
What are some of the highlight phases that when you look back and think about it?
I would say for me, the years, having Emily and the years after that, I loved that whole thing. And I think Bobby did too. And he was a great dad. He really was. And Bobby and Em would have a date night every Monday night, and they would go to this one restaurant in Boulder, and they would sit down and talk and eat, and they, and I always made sure that would happen because I didn't join in because I knew it was their time. It was great. It was great.
Did you keep that up all through?
I think Emily and I can still do that. We can
hang
sit
out.
in the same room and not even talk too.
But they're very...
And that's okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
But we like to, she's into photography and stuff now too, so that's good. And she likes to cook.
So they cook together.
Yeah.
Bobby always cooks.
Yeah.
He's so good. And our duties are divided interestingly we're not typical. I did all the business stuff and that sort of thing, and Bobby did so much of the helping me out with the house and those things. So it was
Was
great.
that a conscious thing that you guys purposely created this division of labor?
Well, I do the cooking. It's
Yeah.
40 years in the restaurant business, so it's like.
Plus, I think we were playing to our
easy,
own
yeah.
strengths because I always had jobs where I really had to deal with a lot of weighty issues and the money and the this and the that and I had 150 women under me at Scripps Clinic. I mean, I had to be organized. I had to be that sort of thing. Whereas Bobby had a
I wouldn't have
very
touched that for
simple.
shit.
No, and he had a very simple life. They were poor, and he grew up very differently than I did. I think his childhood, in some ways, sounds better than mine because he had all sisters. I had all brothers. That's the other thing. I know men. He knows women.
That's
Isn't
a
it
good
true?
matchup, actually.
It is.
Yeah.
So what were some of the challenging phases?
I don't think we had any, really.
I can't think.
Because we didn't put ourselves in people's face to stay so they could.
But between us, challenges, not really. And, Bobby, he never learned to drive because they couldn't afford a car. And I taught him to drive when I was pregnant, but he hated it. So I've always done all the driving. I mean, it's like we did whatever we did best, which was great. And he put up with my dogs for 45 years because he got bit by a rabid dog when he was 7.
No, it was like 12.
Oh, 12. Had to go through the whole thing. Sheriff shot the dog. He had to have all the shots, But I always had to have a dog.
Well, it seems like you've made a lot of subtle adjustments in order to have your relationship keep an equilibrium, but you don't even think about them. It's just natural.
Right.
Like, of course I would accept her dog, and of course I
Right.
would drive him around.
It's because we love each other. I mean, we really do. And we're so happy that we've been able to get through everything and still be together. There's nothing like it in the world than to stay with one person as long as you have.
Tell me more about that.
For me, we remember the same things, but sometimes we remember different things, and that fills in our life together in a different way. We have so many good friends and common. Bobby, he has a whole new set of relatives. I have a new set of relatives that it's all been good for us, really. I think we're both very accepting people.
Yeah.
And even though Bobby's not open the way I am, he's open to everything that comes into his life.
So I'm curious. I'm curious what these phases have been from year one. There's probably lots of passion, and then
Yep.
things ebbed and flowed, and you're 45 years,
I know.
50 years in. Like it seems so natural to you two that it's almost, you don't even know what to say. But looking at it from the outside, you've created something that is pretty uncommon.
It is pretty uncommon, and it's if more people could do it, that's a good thing to hear, because it probably was after about 20 years that we just kind of took a deep breath, and it was all in place.
But when you start labeling a situation that this is what it's like and all stuff, then you start thinking about it like that. And I don't think we ever get up in the morning thinking, gee, we've made it another year. All of a sudden, it's like 40 years.
But you do say every Christmas, another Christmas together. And you do say, I mean, I think in a way, we look at, we celebrate each time we hit another milestone now, don't we?
Yeah.
You said something else really interesting, Bobby, which was that when we start to label things, then we look at them in that way. And I thought what you were aiming towards was an idea that if you don't label things, they can just be what they are.
I think a lot of people, when they get married, they already decided, well, for my first anniversary, we're going to do this. And it's like planned out. And it's not, most of the time, it doesn't work that way. Something is going to come up, and it's just, you just have to play it for the day.
When you're a woman and you get married, you have a romanticized idea of what marriage is going to be like, And if I expected Bobby to bring me flowers every week, or, tell me how much he loved me all the time, that's not going to happen.
Right.
But he shows me by doing sweet things for me. I mean, all the time. and helping me. And
But I brought you flowers on days when it wasn't a holiday.
That's
it wasn't
right.
Valentine's
That's right.
Day. I guess I'm not gonna pay $20 for a rose. I mean, that kind of takes away from
The joy.
Because I'm thinking, God, I could have spent that $20 for something else. But if I go out just because it was a nice day and bring a flower, I think that means just as much as saving up for Valentine's Day or some overrated holiday. You know.
So, when you first got married, why bother? Why bother getting married?
Well, we had a friend visit us who was pushing for it.
She's no longer married either.
No. And that and I saw this little ring in the Crowder's jewelry store on the mall, remember the walking mall in
Pearl Street.
Pearl Street Mall, yeah.
Yeah.
And I really liked it because it was kind of hippie-ish. It looked like a flower underneath, you know. I said, gee, I really like that ring. And Jonelle, who was the gal that was pushing us, said, let's go in and look at it. And I just said, well, maybe we'll just buy it. I went home and I said, Bobby, I think we're getting married. And look what I just got. Our whole wedding cost us maybe $400. That included your suit, my ring.
Okay. Now, I should have let you finish that story, but I'm just really curious about this point. You know, usually when people get married, they have a philosophy that underlies what marriage stands for. And you guys
no.
Probably you must have had something. Well,
we wing it a lot. I was terrified before we got married because none of my family was there. Nobody knew it was happening. And I thought, oh, my God, I'm going to have to tell my parents and everything. This is scary. And Bobby said it's the quietest he's ever heard me when I said my vows. But I was really scared. I mean, it was just like, wow, this is for real.
Yeah. Why? But tell me more. Why are you scared?
I think just because I was used to these sanctioned marriages that I'd been to everyone's wedding where it was a big deal, et cetera, et cetera. And I thought, well, maybe this isn't the way it's supposed to be done. I don't know. Something in the back of my mind was just saying, well, you know, this is not the usual path.
Yeah.
But it went away immediately as soon as we were married, and I don't know. I knew it was right. It wasn't that I didn't know it was right. It was that I felt like almost we were sneaking off to do it because I hadn't really told my parents or anything.
Right.
But in retrospect, I'm very glad that we didn't because I've been to many family weddings and they are a shit show usually. You know, there's always drama. There's always problems. There was none of that.
Yeah. Just
our friends and us. And
when she came home and said, is that how it went in your memory too? She said, I think we're getting married.
Pretty much, yeah.
And you just said, what did you say?
All right.
That's right. That's what he said. Okay. Yeah, all right. No problem. I mean, we'd been living together for, 5 years maybe when we got married?
Yeah.
So.
And then how soon after that was the
5 more years before we got Emily, you mean?
No, before you got married. So she
5
comes
years.
home. She comes home and says, we're getting married. Was it the next day?
No, because we lived together in Laguna, and then we moved to Colorado.
Yeah,
we got married in Colorado.
But I think it was probably about. We probably got the license a little, maybe a month after Jonelle was there. She wasn't even there for the wedding.
Well, all right. So then, when you did get married, everybody's got the vows. Did you guys say until death do us part?
No. I don't think we did.
We might have, yeah. I think we probably did. But what we did was we read from Khalil Gibran. You know, that was very big in those days. You know who he was? A poet.
I mean, I've heard of him.
Yeah, well, it was, you know, have space between yourselves, and yet, you know, it's really actually good words to live by. And I think maybe in a way we have done that. Don't you?
Have space between yourselves
and
what else?
And your children are not yours. They belong to the world. Raise them that way, sort of thing. And just a lot of things that we tried to do. I don't know. I loved that poet because, you know, that was the 60s, you know?
Yeah.
And the late 60s and the 70s. And it just sort of stuck with me, I think, a little bit.
Yeah.
literature for me is one of the biggest things in my life, has always been since I was 3 years old.
Yeah.
So I was completely formed by what I read, and I still am to a degree.
Yeah, and it sounds like that actually that had a lot of influence on.
It did.
But you were also of that mindset at the time, and it's interesting that Bobby, you said no, we didn't say till death do us part.
I don't think.
I think we did the traditional vows at the end of our readings.
But why? What is it about that phrase that you imagine you wouldn't have used it?
Too traditional?
I don't think it came. Well, I don't think it came up at all. Did it? To death we part.
Well, I have our vows
I don't
stored
remember it,
somewhere.
like anyway.
We'll have to look that up. That would be interesting to see who's right, because we always have a different version of a lot of things, don't we? We're never sure who's quite right.
Yeah. 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 The reason I'm really curious about that specific question is it's one of the things that a lot of couples say without thinking about.
Right. And
it's a vow, and, whatever. It means what it means. But I don't think most people actually believe that. I think if they really dig deep and question what are they really committing to, it's something other
for a
than,
while, or for we'll try it,
or it could be we're committing to give this everything we possibly can, but if at some point it's too painful, then
we're not going to do it.
Right. And now some people do mean no matter what,
Yeah.
we're staying together. And that's what I was curious about. If when you were saying, Bobby, we're getting married, what did it mean to you?
It meant that we were going to stay together, but I don't know if I would probably said till death do us part. I don't think I would even be thinking about saying that. I mean,
Yeah.
just because it's part of the vows, like that's somebody else's vows probably.
Yeah.
But I don't even know if we really thought about it that much. It was just something that another step, because we've already been living together. So
Yeah.
it's like
But
we already had an apartment.
I think it was interesting, though, that you really never saw a marriage in action much, did you? Because you didn't have a dad. And I saw my parents break up later after we were married, but they fought all the time. And, I didn't have a real good role. I had some good role models of marriage, but none of them had children, which was very interesting. That's the hardest thing in a marriage, because it can pull you apart if you're not careful. But I did admire some people who had been together for a very long time. One was my uncle's brother and his wife. They were wonderful people. And they just were like hand in glove all the time, but not sappy, or they were intellectuals. They were interesting.
You mean Brooks and Young?
No, his brother, Earl and Joy. And then they had Joy, his wife's sister, Margaret, she was a university professor, and so was the person she lived with. He happened to be gay, and she was straight. I mean, but they were all very liberal, and they forged everything I ever knew. Because I was raised in a purely Republican community. But I knew, and my dad was very prejudiced, but when I was 5 years old, I knew what he said was not right. I knew immediately. He would say things in the car about people, and I'd think, that's not true. So I don't know where I came from, because I have two very conservative brothers and one liberal one. But it's strange. And I'm the only one who's a compassionate person, probably. I'm just an outlier.
The only compassionate person
In my family. My mom,
No, your
my
mom
mom was to a degree, but she still had class issues that came out when she got Alzheimer's. It was like.
Well, yeah, that always happens.
Yeah. It's a throwback.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was.
But I never had those issues ever. I believe that nature is even more important than nurture in terms of what kind of person you're going to be. I've seen it over and over again, and I believe it. So I think Emily really enhanced our lives. We were very, very lucky to have. She was an amazingly happy, smart, just cool baby, chill. Bobby would put her in her pack, as she called it, in the backpack, and we'd walk all over Boulder with her, and she was just always thrilled.
You mentioned earlier that having kids it can be really tough for couples.
It can.
We've seen that a lot on the show. There's a lot of couples coming in with, it's challenging. It's a hard time.
Yes, it is.
I wonder,
especially if you don't agree on how you raise them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And you're exhausted.
Oh.
And you're not having sex.
And all the time you're tired. I mean.
Yeah.
And then you're working too these days. I mean, I never didn't work. I mean, I was always, I had 6 weeks after I had her, and that was it.
Yeah.
But luckily I had great friends too who filled in for me.
Well, I wonder what advice each of you has for couples that are going through that phase.
I guess you just have to know that a better day is coming, and that, you have to get on the same page. You just do. You just have to say, well, what is it that we want for this child, and how are we going to get there? I don't know that we ever really had that talk, but we were very similar in I was a lot more garrulous, obviously, but we were similar in the way we loved her, and she always felt secure and happy.
And what would you say to young couples with going through that hard phase?
I don't know, because we didn't talk to anybody about how to do this.
No.
I don't know how I would answer that, because I don't think we did anything special. It's just we spent time with her. I think especially being a girl kid, like to have a good relationship with your dad, because usually it's the dad is waiting for a son so he can have his son. But
Yeah.
I enjoyed having a daughter. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we still have good times. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's times I get jealous because she obviously, she loves us both, but her dad is her favorite. I mean, there's no question about it.
Really?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, she thinks that I'm too much, but her dad is just right. And there's many times when I'd have my feelings hurt and get jealous, but I finally realized in my head, wait a minute. Emily has a dad that loves her and that she loves. I didn't have that. And she's so lucky, and I'm so lucky that that's the kind of man I married, because I would have been absolutely heartbroken if I'd married a man who didn't think that their daughter was special and perfect, So in the end, I finally saw the light, and it hasn't been that long. I mean, when Em would come home from vacations, they'd go on a hike, and I'd be sitting home thinking, But it was stupid, because that was great for them.
I wonder if when you were feeling that way, did it leak out?
Oh,
into
sure.
The relationship.
Oh, sure. Emily would snipe at me, and I'd snipe at her sometimes for that very reason. I'm sure. And she could put a dagger in my heart like nobody else. She knew how to do it. But on the other hand, when you have a strong mother and you're a daughter, you have to break away a lot harder. It's a lot harder, because you have to be strong enough to push them. It's interesting, because I am a very strong, opinionated, big personality person, and that's she would used to say when you guys were at parties and you all would hang out with me, she'd say, why can't you just bake cookies and then go in the bedroom like a regular mother? And I was like, because I'm not a regular mother. That's right, you aren't, kind of thing. But I realize that intellectually, emotionally is a whole different animal, and you have to get control of that.
Yeah. What's your worst flaw?
Trying to manage every situation that comes up.
Yeah, okay. Bobby.
Flaw? Are you mad?
Come on.
What is my worst flaw?
Lack of articulation. Sometimes you don't talk about what's bothering you ever. That's the only thing.
And that's a flaw?
Well, to me it is, because I pour everything out of me. So that's probably one of my biggest flaws that I do to you, because we're so different that way. But it's also what makes us work, I think. Because if we were both the way I am, we would not have lasted 10 years.
It's an interesting balance to me. The research, I've been reading a lot of this research
I
on
bet.
relationship success lately, and all the researchers from their different perspectives point to this category of couple that doesn't seem to work very well, which is the conflict avoiders. And if you've got two people who just will not engage in conflict, that they'll talk about the happy stuff, but if there's ever conflict, they just shrink up and go to their separate corners. They never develop any depth or trust or intimacy, which is ironic to me, because I'm a conflict avoider. So when I first started thinking about this, I was like, well, you don't want conflict. What are they talking? And then I started to realize through these interviews.
That's growth. Conflict can come out to be growth.
Yeah, because you've got to work through it. You're humans. You've got different stuff. You've got to work through issues.
Yeah.
So you two you're not thinking about the conflicts and how you resolve them so much, but you're also not avoiding them. And so I'm trying to understand what it is that you are doing.
I guess it's a matter of consideration for us, for each other. I mean, I really would feel like I was lost without Bobby, and I hope he feels the same way about me. But life would lose its a reason for being, almost, in a weird way. I just feel like, because we're so different, it has given us understanding, because I know what his family was like. A lot of the reason I do, of course, he's told me many things over the years, but his sister Vi I'm very close to, and they talk about their family life all the time, and it couldn't be more different than mine. And it couldn't, but Bobby was the favored child because he was the only boy, in some ways, and in other ways, I mean, he just ran wild. Really, they all did. They just, and in my case, we kind of did too. It was safe to do that then, obviously, but we really weren't allowed in the house during the day. It was like, get out there and play and don't come back until dinner, So it was a lot of kids. There were 5 in his family and 4 in mine, so. That's probably why Bobby didn't want any more kids. If it had been me, quite frankly, I probably would have had like 5 kids, and I probably would have had 5 dogs, And thank God he tempered me, because I would have been insane by now.
You guys are an amazing balance for each other. You really are.
I see us as sometimes open and shut, and sometimes open and shut, but most of the time, a flow,
Yeah.
You have to understand that you're never going to get along with one person all the time. You can't. There's too many variables. And even
like
your
the
dear
Osmonds.
friends. Yeah.
Right.
That's what, 50 of those people in that family, and they all still
Oh, honey, let's kiss.
get away from me with that.
Bobby's he's not very demonstrative either. But I'm demonstrative enough for both of us, I think. It's interesting. And when Bobby had a bout with cancer, I've had many bouts with many things, and boy, it's really been nice to have each other there, I think. It's good.
Any last words?
Yeah, we'll still be here.
You could phrase it better than that.
We'll be here for a very long time together.
Any parting thoughts, Bobby?
I think I'm kind of glad we did this. It's to hear from how she feels about me. Talking to somebody else, yeah.
It's nice, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I kind of love you.
Kinda.
A lot. It is nice to talk about it because we don't usually sit down and talk about our relationship, do we?
That's probably why it lasted so long.
Well, that's it for Annie and Bobby, folks. Thanks for listening. If you liked what you heard, please subscribe to us on iTunes. It makes a huge difference when you do that, and we really appreciate it. If you have any questions or comments, or if you'd like to be on the show, please reach out to us via one of our social platforms. You can find our website at www.together.guide. Our Facebook page is Facebook/TogetherShow. Twitter and Instagram are both at @together_show. Or you can email me at host@together.guide. Our producer is Charlene Goto. Our web designer is Courtney Munna. Our art director and my one and only is Aubrey Pick. She just got back from a shoot, and I can't wait to cuddle with her. Thanks once again to my guests, Bobby and Annie. Hey, Bobby, do you mind if I come over and cook myself some more breakfast? It'd be just like old times. Anyway, that's all for today, folks. See you next time.